Yeah, well, welcome everybody. Welcome to ICUJP, our Friday morning forum. Um, Bear with me, my coffee maker is not working this morning, so uh, which is horrible.
It's
Uh,
horrible.
We'll have a moment
God,
of silence.
Yes.
I've had that thing for so long. I was just
Oh,
gonna make some Turkish coffee, but I didn't clean it last time I used it. Anyway, but welcome to the Friday morning forum. I like to call it the getting my head put on straight meeting
Good.
where we could discuss things that are going on in our communities.
The only thing is, in the ICUJP or in the chat, I put the link tree, and you can directly donate there. You can get some marvelous swag from Threadless that you can get your own tote bag. You can do all that kind of stuff, which would be great if you can, especially as we get into the holidays and Giving Tuesday and all that kind of stuff. So please take a look and yeah, donate if you can. You can either do it as a one-time thing or as a monthly donation, and any way you do it, it goes to good use. Thinking about what I'm going to tell you about got me thinking a few different ways. So if you'll forgive the ADHD um, moving all over the place as far as the subject matter, I would appreciate it. So in a recent YouGov poll, about 1,100 people were polled about New York politics, and these are people from all over the U.S. and that recent mayor election. And some interesting data came out of that poll. The majority of people that were in this poll support raising taxes on corporations and millionaires and billionaires. Over 40% are for implementing free childcare for every child 6 weeks to 5 years. 40% of those polled are for raising the minimum wage to $30 by 2030. 36% are for freezing rent for lower income tenants. One third of those polled are for government-owned grocery stores to help control costs. And one third of those support permanently eliminating the fares on public buses. So even among the Republicans that were polled, the support for those policies was very strong. 40% for taxing corporations and the rich, 45% support free childcare, 35% for that $30 minimum wage, 42% to support a rent freeze, and 37% for government grocery stores, and 30% support those free buses, right? So the big margins in favor of even controversial proposals like government supermarkets, to me, were evidence that the American people feel screwed over by the system as it is and want government to do more for ordinary people. And the interesting part for me of this poll was when people were asked if they would ever vote for a candidate who identified as a democratic socialist, right? Those words that have been bandied about in media and even by the candidate who won and described himself as such. One third of the people polled said yes, they would support somebody who identified as a democratic socialist. 46% said no. That's almost half those polled, right? Why is that? Why is that term so loaded for the American populace? I think there are a lot of reasons for that. One of the reasons is the basic dumbing down of citizens from years of a weak public school system, more interested in, steering the human livestock they put out to those twin avatars of military and the predatory capitalist grindstone. But I think the biggest reason is really the most important and original development that this country, that the United States has ever created. And to talk about that, I have to go back to the first instance in my life when I started thinking about this. And one of my favorite bands was this strange, kind of herky-jerky group of misfits that formed in the late 60s in Akron, Ohio. And their name was Devo. Now, like many unique musical groups, they were mostly art students and they met at Kent State in Ohio. They were basically shocked into their performance style and philosophy by the horrible event that happened on campus while they were there on May 4th, 1970, the Kent State Massacre. You can imagine being in Ohio and being in Kent State at the time, how that would affect how you see the world. And it was evident to the group that what was happening to humans was de-evolution, where our natural predilection to evolve and grow is being stymied by mass marketing. More than politics, more than religion, we see the world by the subliminal messages we're fed and we act accordingly. Be good customers, be good consumers, don't ask too many questions and work hard. And if anything, the politicians we elect are doing the bidding of national conglomerates and to hell with the rabble that elected them. They know what their job is, and it's to support business in this country. And that's why you have so many middle of the road corporatist politicians from either party in this country. It's not like you're going to openly add wavy gravy to the board of directors of your company. You're going to go with somebody with an MBA and uh, knows what the priority is between dividend reports or fatalities from a product. Now, so why do the words democratic socialist scare us and the words predatory capitalist don't? Well, maybe it's because you heard that first phrase used as a cudgel by the corporatist media in describing Mamdani, right? Well, the first and last time I heard that latter phrase of predatory capitalism was in a presidential debate when Dennis Kucinich uttered those words. And I think it was even before the pre-internet dark ages on CNN. So what does that mean? What I derive from that is when it comes to letting people know what we believe in, we really need to take our egos out of the equation. Now, it's great that we might look up to Fighting Bob La Follette and Eugene Debs or anybody else that um, really made a stand in this country. But when you want to convince someone that the person you support for public office is a good choice, maybe the best thing to tell them is what this person supports and how it can benefit them and their family. Hold off on getting them to join on a verse of the Internationale for now. All right. So, in an era when this society is de-evolving at an exponential rate, I think the best thing we can do is to make sure our friends and neighbors are being communicated to in a straightforward manner and and talk to them about plain, good people that want to bring compassion and empathy back to the political sphere. If we keep it on that level and we keep it from a place where they have been trained by this society to be to go into an adversarial mode right when they hear those words, then you're communicating with them and you're subverting the propaganda that they've been fed. You're helping them be smarter than the propaganda. And maybe if we do that, we can help keep this society from de-evolution in the road that it is in right now. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Rick. That was really good. Um, Very insightful. Uh, but now I can get into Elaine. Elaine Johnson, I've met her like I think 4 or 5 years. I can't remember now. But she was easy to as a leader in our community. Elaine's really easy to follow because she walks the talk. She does the work. Um, she's a really strong advocate for the downtrodden people in our community. And so one of the issues that we're in our community we're going through right now is housing. Um, we're in Santa Cruz, I think the median household, if you want to buy a house, it's what, 1.5 million, something crazy like that to buy a house in Santa Cruz. If you go up in the Santa Cruz mountains, it's only like 750 or $800,000. So uh, we're getting pushed out. As an employee, when I used to work for people, I used to hire people uh, to come into Santa Cruz to work. It was easy at first because we can get people in Santa Cruz, and over the years, it's not so easy. People coming from King City, they come in, 2 hours to drive. Manteca, somebody was coming in from Manteca to work in Santa Cruz. So our workforce is getting pushed out. We just can't afford to live here. So I was going to read a brief bio from Elaine's website or webpage. Elaine Johnston was born and raised in Bronx, New York City, where she first learned the importance of community and being in service. She understood early in the value of community and how important it is to support everyone, including those who are unrepresented, with some opportunities offered to others. And it didn't matter if one was raised in a housing project, that the possibilities were just as endless for her as they were for others. She is passionate about advocating for affordable housing, creating positive change in our community, and leveling the playing field so everyone can have a safe, stable place to call home, regardless of race, gender, and socioeconomic background. She believes in having a home is a human right. So, Elaine, it's all yours now. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. And thank you, everyone, for the opportunity to be here this morning. I have been thinking about this, well, some of this, when Don first approached me to come and speak. I was thinking about what Pamela had mentioned about coming off of months and months of doing the work. I'm actually off this week after coming off of 2.5 years of doing some political work on a tax measure that we did in the city of Santa Cruz, and I'm happy to say that we actually won. And it was no small thing, I tell you. So Pamela, I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm chilling right now, even though my mind is still in. Okay, do we have to canvass today? Do we need to call voters today? Right? It's like so ingrained in me. But as Don mentioned, yeah, I'm originally from New York City. I've been in Santa Cruz Santa Cruz County a little over 20 years, and it's I learned early on, growing up in a housing project, that that though I had a mother and father and siblings, that I had 10 mothers, 10 fathers, 30 siblings, because when you grow up in a housing project, everybody was very connected. And so I learned early on how community is what brings and builds people up. And so that is one of the many loves that I bring into this work, is knowing that regardless of how things may look, that a way can still be made. And so my upbringing was very valuable to me, because we struggled growing up. We didn't have a lot of money, but we had a lot of love in our hearts. And so I learned through doing and watching the other people in my community, how we really came together and helped each other. And so living here in Santa Cruz County, I have noticed, over the years, that it is harder and harder for people to live here and stay here. And it was one of the several reasons why I chose to accept the executive position, director position of Housing Santa Cruz County in 2022. And a little bit of my background, the law is a big part of my life as well. as I am also the local NAACP president here in Santa Cruz County. And that's where Don and I connected, and in other areas. And so I do wear several different hats in this community, but at the end of the day, regardless of what hat I have on, to me, it's always about equity and inclusion. It's always about enoughness, and if there's a need, how can we fill that need? And so the housing reality in Santa Cruz County is daunting. Um, you know, we not only want to make sure that people who grew up here and are growing up here can stay here, but we also, we keep a very close eye on our seniors, and we take a very close eye on prevention. It's not just trying to get people housed, but it's keeping people housed, which is absolutely critical. We hear from many of our community members who, are just, devastated that, they have to leave because they can't afford to raise their families, that, someone's social security check didn't come, which means they may be evicted. And so it is absolutely important in the work that we do to make sure that there are means so that people can lean on and lean into if they need to, for rental assistance, services, whether it's food, which is a big deal going on in the world, but also in our community. And I believe housing insecurity and food insecurity go hand in hand. There for the grace of God. 15 years ago, I remember asking my landlord if she could hold off on the rent for a couple of weeks just so I could eat that week. And so I know a lot of our community members that are walking that journey to this day. And so as far as Housing Santa Cruz County, which is a 5-year organization, which was formed out of back in 2018. We ran a countywide housing tax measure that didn't pass. But because those seeds were planted, there was about 60 to 80 community members and leaders who had planted this seed to figure out ways on how we could bring funding, continuous funding into the community. And when Measure H didn't pass, it wasn't a one and done. After some thoughtful, strategic conversations, Housing Santa Cruz County was formed in 2020. And I was invited to be the executive director in 2022. And so the work of we call it HSCC is a big part of it is the advocacy work, right? We work very closely with our state and local officials. We are very fortunate in Santa Cruz County to have deep relationships with a lot of our state officials. I myself personally, Assemblywoman Gail Pellerin, Senator John Laird, Congressman Jimmy Panetta, Dawn, Assemblyman woman Dawn Addis. I mean, these are people that I have personal relationships with, that I can pick up the phone and call them and say I need help, and they will respond. One of the things that I have learned early on, and I just tested my intern before he moved back to LA just last week. I asked him, what was one of the most important things you learned being an intern at HSCC? And he said, everything is relational. And everything is relational. And I learned that early on as a little girl with my father. We would go get on the subway, go down to Macy's in Manhattan, and here I'm thinking that we're getting clothes for us. And I'm like, Daddy, those clothes are not going to fit us. And the clothes were actually for the people in the cardboard boxes. And I remember him saying, never judge because you don't know how they got there. And so I carry all of this, all of the messages and the seeds that were planted in me early on when you do this work, because this work is not for the faint of hearts. Because, Santa Cruz for the 3rd year in a row is the most expensive rental market in the United States, which is insane. And, though it's always good to be number one, this is number one we don't want to be. And so we have to do whatever it is we can to either get off that list or get down below on that list. But being number one is not attractive at all, because, we watch so many people struggle, right, to live in this beautiful place, that people call paradise. And we watch a lot of our community members have to move because it's too expensive to live, which means taking the kids out of school, which means taking them away from their friends and having to start someplace new. You know, I also have a strong relationship with our superintendent of schools, and him and I work very closely on, you know, housing work, racial work in the schools. And, you know, something that every time he shares this with me, you know, it just really saddens me to when I hear between 25 and 2,700 students are unhoused. Now, I couldn't imagine going to school and then sleeping in a car afterwards. You know, that made no sense to me. It would be hard, and it is hard for students to be able to focus, hard for them to study, hard for them to learn, hard for them to be with their peers. And so, you know, that is one of the other things and the reasons why I do this work. Everyone, and I truly believe this in my heart of hearts, and it was ingrained in me as a child, that everyone truly deserves a safe, stable place to call home. And I say stable because there are a lot of people that are transitory, you know, putting things in cardboard boxes, putting things in storage because you're going to have to move again in 3 to 6 months. That's not stability. And when you don't have stability, it impacts, you know, people at work, right? They're not showing up for work. They can't keep their job because, again, you know, because they have to move. Or as Don mentioned, you know, trying to hire people. This day and age, and it's really, really difficult. The businesses are impacted big time in Santa Cruz County, because people end up getting a job and then they have to leave, right? And so this work is critically important to me personally, and building up and continue to build up our community is what's critical. And the other thing that I find that's very important is the collaboration that you have to have. I mean, you just have to have it. And I see it here with this group, with your group, you know, how you're working together to solve some solutions, right? And so Housing Santa Cruz County, we partner with many different local organizations here on advocating for affordable homes, at working closely with developers and making sure that in their planning that they're creating homes for everyone's pocketbook, because you know that can be a struggle as well. You know, there's a lot of housing being built, but a lot of people still can't afford to live in them. And so, you know, one of our many responsibility is making sure that housing is being built for low and lower income families, right? And so again, so that the playing field is leveled for everyone. You know, I'm a true believer in that the playing field has to be level from the beginning for everyone. Otherwise, it's not going to work. You know, because it is, at the end of the day, it's about access. At the end of the day, it's about dignity. At the end of the day, it's about equity and making sure that everyone, regardless of race, gender, age, sex, that everyone can be able to, if they're looking for a home, be able to afford a home. And so, you know, having the support of our electeds locally and statewide and in Congress makes a big difference. Because one, they not just listen to us, but they're always willing and ready to implement action. And you know, that leads me to the tax measure that we just successfully won. Measure C, as Don knows, we had planted a seed 2.5 years ago. A lot of conversations about how can we continue to bring funding into this community so that we can offer people stipends for prevention. How we can, if a developer needs, you know, some assistance to completing a project, because what you see that, you know, projects get started, then they start, and then they stop, and then nobody wins there, right? Um, how do we help those that are unhoused get services? And so when that seed was planted, and I'm not gonna lie, 2.5 years ago, you know, we spent a lot of time strategically looking at what would be the best process for our community. And what's important for me and our organization is any conversation needs to be inclusive. We need to make sure that all voices are at the table, right? Because at the end of the day, we are asking the community to step in and step up to support it. You know, and so after, you know, countless meetings, working with our city supporters and our CBOs, we came up with a tax measure, a parcel tax and a real estate transfer tax, which you don't see that often. We stepped in, we took the risk, and we went for it. And in 2025, and I can't believe we're in November, but I can because, we hit the ground running in January by collecting signatures. And in June, finding out we qualified for the ballot. We got on the ballot and we put together an amazing strategic plan to connect with the voters. And the voters said yes, and we won. And I am riding on that right here, right now. It's been a little over a week since the election. The yes on C, the numbers continue to go up, which is what we wanted. And I'm just so excited that the voters, which I choose to call our community, said yes to this work, right? That they said yes. Okay, we're in this with you, because we have to be in this together. I can't say enough. I mean, we had a wealth of volunteers, our endorsers, our funders, and we also had the support of our faith leaders. And we have a really strong group of faith leaders in Santa Cruz County that I cannot speak highly enough. And they stepped in and they stepped up from the get-go. And, I was very, very pleased, from being a signer on the ballot to writing op-eds and really showing the community how important not just this measure is, but it's about the people. It's not about the measure, it's about the people. And so the measure will bring in about $5 million a year for the next 20 years. So about $100 million. I'm very, very pleased with that, because, with everything that's going on in the world right now, we couldn't just stand on the sidelines and wait for something to happen. We, on a local level, needed to do something, and we chose, to step in, to lean in when the odds was looking a little bit not to be maybe against us, that we went in anyways. And I share that because, again, with my upbringing, I watched my mother and my grandmother make a way out of seeming no way. And so I always lean into that. Well, nothing beats a failure but a try. And we tried it and we were successful. The community was successful. And so funding will start coming in 2026, 2027, which, gives, to me, I call that, it gives our community some hope. It gives our community some leverage that they can lean into. It gives our community some comfort knowing that help is out there. Because at the end of the day, my neighbor is your neighbor and your neighbor is my neighbor, right? And so we're not separate from each other. And so, I'm riding I'm still riding on excitement right now and trying to do my best to get some much needed rest. But, listening to the stories, listening to people these last 10 months, has been so impactful in the sense that, when you run campaigns, you get to learn about your community on a deeper level. And because this measure has passed doesn't mean the work is over. Actually, the work has just begun, right? Because we still are gonna, as the funds come in, we still need to work with our community that is still struggling, right? Is Measure C the end all be all? Nope, but it's a piece of the puzzle. And we continue to put that puzzle together to make sure that we are still going on the right track and bringing whatever we need to do to build housing in Santa Cruz County. And so, people ask us, how can they get involved? The first thing I always say is educate yourself so you can educate your neighbor, right? How you can get involved is when you see, if you know your neighbor is struggling, you can either direct them to where they can get support. You can support them as well. But I think what is so critically important is communication, right? Because there are times when the communication is not actually the right communication or the right information, and it just instills more fear. Move people away from fear to faith. I'm a true believer in that. Yes, as I said, 15 years ago, things were tough, and and people, I did have to reach out for support and assistance. Was there shame attached to that? Yes, it was, but I forgave myself because I was worthy of being able to eat that day. Because I deserved to eat that day. I deserved to have that roof over my head. And yes, my landlord deserved to have her rent money, but she also was supporting me and saying, Elaine, I just want you to eat tonight. Don't worry about the rent for this week. And so we have to continually show up that way in our communities, right? And be looking at ways that we can continue to bring funding into our community, because there are thousands of people that are struggling, not just a handful, but thousands, including our babies. I call our students our babies, right? And they're our babies. I don't got no kids, but they're my babies as well, right? Because they are the next generation. But most importantly, they should not be going to bed hungry. I can tell you, I know what it's like to go to bed hungry. And that's something you don't talk about. And so I know the kids are not talking about the fact that they're going to bed hungry and that their mother can't or father can't pay the rent. They're not talking about that. But I can tell you that's what's happening. When they tell you 25 to 2,700 students are sleeping in their cars, that's unacceptable. We have to fix that. And so Measure C, planting additional seeds, working and collaborating with other organizations that offer services. Our Second Harvest Food Bank here, has been hit really hard. And so it's like an all hands on deck right now. But I want to remind people it's always all hands on deck, but doesn't have to come from a place of fear. It can come from a place of faith, right? It can come from a place of love, right? It doesn't have to come from a place of scarcity. Um, right. And so, I tell people, if you stand in a supermarket and you see somebody taking groceries out of their bag because the cashier just told them they don't have enough, if you have it, just cover it if you can, because that goes a mighty long way. Housing is your sanctuary. When you walk in that door and you close that door at night, that is your sanctuary, and everybody deserves to have that sanctuary. We have a lot of people on the street. So how can we support people getting off the street? Right? We advocate. We go to Sacramento. We support. We stand in front of city council and support the different developments that's happening in Santa Cruz County. We stand there. We're not just cheerleaders. We're not just quote unquote advocates. We are really truly working to move the needle to build more homes in Santa Cruz County so more of our community can live here, stay here, thrive here. Because without housing, it's extremely difficult having the weight of not knowing when you leave your job that you're going to sleep in a car and that you're going to shower at the gym. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to allow me to be here. I sent, I think it was Rick, information on Housing Santa Cruz County. So you have our website, you go check out our website. Some of the projects that we work on, we have Affordable Housing Month, and that usually takes, but we'll start planning that in about a month after we chill out from Measure C. But Affordable Housing Month is an opportunity to bring the community together during the whole month of May. And this past May, we just had our largest one ever. We had about 22 different events throughout the county. We invite the community to either host or co-host with us different housing events to bring awareness, to get the community engaged and involved. And we have a kickoff event where I usually bring a keynote speaker. And because housing and health is a big part of the work that we do as well. Because, without housing, people can't get healthy or stay healthy. And so we do a lot of that work, and we do a lot of partnerships with the County of Santa Cruz on housing work. We work closely with the Housing Authority. And our community board organizations, just to name a few. But a lot of our information is on the website. But I'm excited to be here, and it's nice to get to know you all and the work that you're doing in your communities. And I'm happy to answer any questions for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
It's really powerful. and I really thank you being a citizen here in Santa Cruz County for 30 plus years that you're a great advocate for us. And, I'm proud of you.
Thank you, Don.
Pamela used to live in Santa Cruz.
Oh yeah. I have a lot to say on this, but I won't do it now because my grandparents retired in 1954 and Santa Cruz has always been one of my homes. And I had to leave 10 years ago because the landlords had gone nuts. They were evicting everybody, and it's very close to my heart. I worked in public health 14 years, and the homeless issue has always eaten at me severely. My question for the community leaders at the time, because I got on my bandwagon, talked to a lot of people I'd known for years. Why isn't UC Santa Cruz taking some responsibility for the housing needs of the students? Because that's from 62 on, the university students have impacted the town of Santa Cruz. And there's so many horrible landlords in Santa Cruz who will pack 15 students into their homes and pay and ask them to pay top dollar. So I'll shut up, but I want your contact because I live in Sonoma now and the homeless situation still eats me alive. And I'd love to talk to you and learn from you and understand. And by the way, congratulations. And you deserve a massage and a girls' day out.
Right.
So pamper yourself because as activists, we can burn out so badly that it gets dire. So you do take care of yourself. Congratulations. Very, very excited about your accomplishment. And I want your contact. Thank you.
Yes, for sure. I'll make sure Donna Rick gets to you. Thank you, Pamela. And I appreciate you bringing up UCSC. We actually I work really closely with UCSC as well. And, I would honestly say, well, you just moved. Oh, there you go. They're doing their part. They have about 35 to 3,700 homes in the works between now and 2030. So I'm
So
very,
happy to
very
hear
pleased.
that.
Yes.
Yeah, I noticed that on the build. Actually, I went to your website.
Yep.
And I saw the builds that you guys are part of, and a lot of the things that you're doing. It was really encouraging to see that UCSC's doing some builds. And as a plumber, I used to go up there and work on those things. So it's Dick Bunce.
Yeah, NIMBY obviously is a problem in getting affordable housing built. And what I'd like to ask you is this. The state has a by right mandate out there. And how does a particular residential housing project qualify in such a way that the state mandate that says by right they can do this, whether the middle class neighbors like it or not? How do you qualify? How does a project qualify for that state classification?
So are you asking how does so when a developer is about to develop, you're asking how what do they call them? The different laws, everybody's moving here, the different laws that they can lean into to build. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, well, why don't you answer that question and then we'll see if that fits with what I'm really asking.
Well, I know there are some laws, and I don't have the stuff in front of me that allows, there's like builders remedies and stuff like that that developers can use to build homes. And so I know, and we struggle with it here in Santa Cruz. Santa Cruz County is actually not far from where I live. Neighbors are frustrated that because developers have more leeway in what they build and where they build, the community struggles. But I mean, the law is the law. Like I tell people, the only thing you could do is change the laws if it's not going to work.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about the 20% standard for low to moderate income when a new residential project is underway? Do you have anything like that in your Planning Commission in Santa Cruz?
Yes, we do. Yes. They have to build minimum 20%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Steve.
Thanks so much, Elaine. Just congratulations. You know, Tuesday was a significant election day for so many reasons. We put a lot of effort into Prop 50, and there were the elections around the country, and I'm thrilled. This is the first time I heard about the passage of Measure C. But my cynical side remembers when I lived in Los Angeles that we passed Measure H and Measure M, and we allocated millions of dollars to addressing the housing crisis. Now, I've been away from Los Angeles about 3 years, and others on this screen, including Anthony, who may be there and be available or not because he's getting ready. But the disappointment generally in LA was that allocating money, and you said it, is the first step, not the end, because then that money has to be used by elected officials and others to implement the goals of affordable and sustainable housing. I don't know if you personally know the experience in LA and what the structural resistance and structural obstacles were. But if you know about LA as an example, that's great. But if not, what is there in Measure C? In fact, take a few minutes because we have time now. It's only 8:30. Just build out what the elements of Measure C are. It's not just a bunch of money. There must be benchmarks and allocations and ways that money is going to be used. And do you have some confidence that the elected officials are on board to implement it to the fullest?
I do. And I think that's a great question. Yes, the funds will go into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. It's a trust fund that the city of Santa Cruz has had in place for over 20 years. So I trust it 300%. It's not a trust fund that just got created. It's been there forever. There's going to be an oversight committee. So any decisions that will be made will not just be made by the city council. The committee will be a big part of that conversation as well. 86% of the funds will go towards affordable housing, 10% will go towards focused on services for the unhoused, and 3% will go towards the administration of the funds. And so, but thank you for asking, because that question did come up quite a bit, and I can't stress it enough. There's something already in place. There will be people in place to oversee that, to make sure that the right decisions are being made for that money. Thank you for asking, Steve.
Thank you. Yanni.
Yes. Thank you, sister, for the information that you provided and the advocacy that you do. I was wondering, what do you do for self-care? Because sister kind of spoke towards that. And I just want to know what your self-care and self-love and self-healing regimen is.
Thank you. So I always got to get right with myself first thing in the morning. Like I did this morning, that's my truth. I gotta do prayer meditation just to get right in the morning. And I dance. I like to dance, but I love to sing. And and I don't have to do a lot to go do that, but I do love to sing. I sing my way through some stuff. And I pamper myself. Like today, I'm gonna pamper myself, get a mani-pedi. And I spend quality time with my wife, and we love to play games. And she has a very hard job as well. Hard job, but meaningful job as well. And so we're always reminding each other that, okay, it's Saturday, no laptops. Let's just walk downtown Santa Cruz, go to a movie, go out to dinner, play cards. Yeah, because I appreciate the question because it is absolutely critical. And we're constantly having conversations about it because it's so easy to answer that one email, then you're off and running again, right? When you say, oh, just gonna answer that one email, and just 10 emails later. But thank you for that question because we do have to remind ourselves, especially, as people of color, because it's ingrained in us to keep the train moving, but it's okay to rest as well. And I love football.
There you go.
So
Thank you. Thank
Sundays,
you.
I'm watching my New York Giants lose. But
Well,
I
I'm a
love football. I've been watching football for decades. Growing up in New York, it's just ingrained in me. It took me a little minute to have to watch football starting at 10 o'clock on the West Coast. It's just so weird. Versus,
well,
in New York, it started at 1 o'clock, so you went and got your wings and all that stuff. Here it's like you eating your eggs and bacon and watching football.
well, you know what? I could relate to that. I'm a Raiders fan, so
Okay.
God bless you, sister. Have a wonderful day and enjoy your Matty Petty. All right.
Thank you so much.
yeah, I'm a Raider fan too. So
Yeah.
Anthony Menounos.
Oh yeah.
So,
Oh, there
hey,
you
I'm
go.
here. I'm here. Yeah. Elaine, I just love what you're doing. I love your spirit. We're doing similar work here in Pasadena, and you know, we passed rent control, which made a big
Mm-hmm.
difference.
Wow.
We were behind SB4.
Yeah.
We started here in Pasadena with a overlay zone for churches, but it was such a weak measure that we
Mm-hmm.
decided to go statewide. And
Mm-hmm.
we also were having trouble building ADUs in Pasadena with
Mm-hmm.
all kinds of obstacles. So we were able to convince Senator Wachowski, to
Mm-hmm.
get rid of all the obstacles to ADUs. And we're also considering transfer tax and things like that right now,
Mm-hmm.
because the funding for affordable housing is being slashed at the federal level. So we need a local for funding. But I want to, in a way, address something that Steve said. I think, and it relates to what was said by Rick. I think the capitalist system is failing us worldwide. We traveled to places like Costa Rica, and they're having an affordable housing crisis. The system isn't working, and we need to have the government step in, subsidize housing. When we did that back before Reagan, we had a relatively low homelessness rate. There were only 100,000 people homeless when Reagan took office. He slashed HUD, and by the time he left office, it was up to 400,000. It's been going up ever since. So we know what ends homelessness. It's housing.
That's right.
But housing takes time to build,
That's right.
and you have to supervise to make sure the money is well spent. But in our city of Pasadena, we've cut our homeless count by over 50%,
Mm-hmm.
because we have the faith communities working with the service providers, working with the community leaders, and everybody's on the same page. We want to end homelessness. We want to have a decent, affordable home for everyone in our city. When we can unite, we can really make progress. And so I'm just so delighted to hear what you're doing, and I hope we can stay in touch. I'll put my contact person information in the chat. I have to close because my wife is heading up north to a conference from Seventh-day Adventists on ending homelessness, and
Mm-hmm.
she is a force of nature. She's the one who lives and breathes affordable housing. In fact, she just got diagnosed with cancer,
Mm-hmm.
but she hasn't let that stand in her way. She's going to be going up to do her work. So I just want to commend you so much, Elaine. I love what you're doing, and I want to stay in touch with you.
Thank you. I'd love that as well, Anthony. And if you're going to be doing a transfer tax, I'd be happy to talk to you about what we did, because it's all about the strategy at the end of the day.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more? See, I don't see any more hands up. I can ask questions then. Oh, Rick. I go to Rick and back to Steve.
No, this has been very interesting in a couple different ways. I think that because of Anthony's advocacy, we've been featuring more people talking about affordable housing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in a way it's really good for organizations like yours to be in contact, because there's really no central warehouse where all of these organizations can get information on how, like how you guys were able to do the transfer tax and stuff like that. I know that All Saints Church in Pasadena here has been very involved with that. And that's Erica Tamlin. I can also get you in touch with her because one of the things that she talked about when she talked to us was if people are working on stuff, they already have a process that's been documented
Yeah.
on different things that they've been able to do. And working with Anthony as well, because one of the big things he's doing is working with parishes and different
Yeah.
religious communities and buildings in the area for housing as well. So I think that's something that you might want to. I'll sidebar, and I don't mind being the the person that puts together the party where you guys can get together and stuff. That's fine. I'll be Truman Capote in this instance. Thank you for talking about self-care. You reminded me of one of my favorite shows, Parks and Recreation. Treat yourself.
That's right.
And
That's right.
here, I'll unblur my video here so you guys can see. Basically, this wall back here of CDs and stuff, and music. There's a couple of instruments that are in front of me too. Um, that's kind of the self-care that I've been putting in. And it's the same thing with you in singing and dancing, except you're probably better at that than I am. But yeah, thank you very much. It's good to hear from you.
Thank you, Rick. And I want to say you reminded me, I serve on the Community Action Board here in Santa Cruz, and they have created the Tiny Homes Project, and it's on the church property in South County. And, again, we have to think out of the box and be creative, right? And so I was pleased to be a part of that work and advocate for that work when there was some community pushback, but it's happening. It's actually happened, and right, we're filling it up and getting furniture and stuff now for the people who are moving in.
It's great.
So exactly.
Steve.
Yes, Elaine, you can tell by now that we're an activist group.
Yes.
And we are deeply interested in the study of how activism can succeed and how activism in the streets can be translated into electoral power. That we exhibited that last Tuesday. So I'd like you to take a few minutes and describe your campaign to win the approval of Measure C. What was the nature? Was there any opposition? Was there corporate and real estate and landlord and entrenched interest arrayed against you? How did you frame your message to address that? Was there reluctance early on for voters to spend more money? They feel overtaxed and overburdened. Why are you coming to us again with something either directly or indirectly that's going to raise our taxes? So what was the opposition like, and what was your campaign strategy like, and what kind of lessons are there for any of us when we try to advance a progressive legislation at the ballot box?
Thank you for asking. So the first thing I want to say is, when you do your polling will tell you how creative you need to be. right? And so, our polling showed us that we needed to be really strategic, focused, and creative. And so I'll start out. We had to do signature gathering, right? Because it was a citizens initiative. My organization ran the campaign. And so signature gathering and campaign are two different worlds. So to do the signature gathering, we had to, get our community to go out there and invite other members of our community to sign their name saying they support this getting on the ballot. Now, that came with some of its challenges. A lot of people are not comfortable doing that. But we did have a wealth of volunteers who helped do that. And in the middle of that, the realtors stepped in.
Mm.
Yep. So about February, March, whoo, here they just swooped right on in. There was people getting signatures, and they were confusing the voters. It confused the voters big time because the name of their measure was almost identical to ours.
Mm.
And so that forced us to step up our game even more. One, because now we had to convince voters that, including my friends, that you didn't sign the measure I'm running, you signed the other measure, right? But this something I want to say, which is so critical. I made sure the team didn't focus too much on what they were doing, right, versus what we needed to do. Because it was so easy. I mean, now don't get me wrong, we had to keep our eye on the ball, but it was important that we stayed focused on making sure that we had to get a certain number of signatures, get them into the county so they can count them by the middle of May. And so once we had that number, every week, every day, I was meeting with people. I hired some folks to work on the grounds. We ended up having to pay to get paid signature gatherers. It was an all hands on deck to do what we could to get those numbers and unconfuse the voters about there being two different measures and what ours was actually going to do versus the realtors. Because they were upset because we had the transfer tax in there, but theirs also had a transfer tax. So but anyways, we got through that. And then once we qualified, again, we knew because we had opposition that the trek was going to be hard but doable. And I say doable again because at the end of the day, everything's relational. And I tell people, when you have these relationships in the community, people trust you. And so, Steve, yes, we have people who didn't vote for the measure, right? Because they didn't want any more taxes, right? We totally understand and respect. I mean, we have a mortgage, we get the tax bill. They didn't want another line on there. They had their other concerns, as was mentioned. The money wasn't going to be used correctly and all those stuff. So we had to, build trust back into that. But we had to do everything possible to make sure we reach the voters. Canvassing, knocking on doors. We would knock on thousands and thousands of doors. We were at every farmer's market every Wednesday and Saturday morning. We attend many public events that allowed us to table. We had a kickoff event, which invited people to come, get involved, sign up, commit, to us for these 2.5 months. And we had a kick-ass ground plan. I ran that ground plan. And again, it's about the relationships with the people. You meet people where they are, right? We met every Saturday, but I was dropping things off on people's porches Monday through Sunday. I was meeting people at coffee shops. I was meeting people at restaurants. I was meeting people at their job to give them their packets. You do what you have to do to, one, keep the volunteers engaged and keep the community involved in what is going on, and talking to them to get their support. And, we had colleagues in the Bay Area who helped us, right? Who believed in this work, right? We had phone banking, we had texting. We did it all, and we literally did it all right up until we did sign waving. We did all of that right up until probably 7 o'clock election night, right? We were still calling people, reminding them to vote. Truth be told, when Prop 50 popped up, that was a gift for us, right? Because a lot of people weren't even thinking about voting, right? And so when Prop 50 popped up, everybody was, oh my goodness, we have Indivisible Santa Cruz, 15,000 people came to the park, right? We got their endorsements. Our endorsements was off the chain. That was also so critical. And you want endorsements not just from people, but from organizations. We had endorsements from faith leaders. We had endorsements from our community health trust, the county office of education. It's so different than when New York we say something different for the schools. We had endorsements from our electeds. We had endorsements from a whole smorgasbord, the NAACP. You'll see them all on our website. But that was so critical at the beginning, because you need those endorsements for your mailers, and you need those endorsements for your message. And our message, though we want to focus on what it is we want from the community, and that's them to vote yes on C, but we also thought it was important for them to see the dirty trick that the realtors did by swooping in, having a measure that was almost similar to ours, which really confused the voters. But I'm gonna be clear, when it was all said and done, people weren't confused anymore, right? And so, it's the volunteers. It's honoring their time, right? Meeting them where they're at. Staying on it every day. I'll tell you, when you run a campaign, there is no day off. There's just no day off. And because I love people, I enjoy doing it. But it's being around people who want the same thing for their community, the health and well-being of their community. They want to strengthen their community. And so they said, Elaine, we're committed. I said, awesome. How can I get your packet? Anybody else that would like to join you to walk? Anybody else? Any other events that we should be at? Talking to people. I can't even tell you how many forums I was invited to participate in to speak about Measure C. That's also critically important, because at those forums, you're talking to people who may not normally be in the fold. And so it gets to widen your net a lot. So anytime you're invited to a forum, just say yes. I say, just say yes, and go share with them why the measure is important. For me, that's what was important. How can this help? This funding is going to help your children, right? Or your neighbor, or yourself, or your grandmother or grandfather. You got to speak life into it, because that's what this funding is a lifeline for people. And so, we just everybody stepped in.
Wow.
Yes.
A couple quick follow-ups,
Sure.
and I know we have other hands, but we have a little more time. First of all, when are you announcing your race for governor?
Me?
You.
Me?
When are you going to run, or county supervisor? I mean,
that's a possibility.
you are a
county supervisor is a possibility.
You are a dynamo, and everything you've said is like a workshop in passing legislation. But really, a couple quick. How much did you meet or exceed the signature percentage to get qualified? I mean, were you close, or was that a sign that you had a potential of winning?
So yeah, we had exceeded the number of signatures we needed. But what we also did was, and we actually talked about this the other night, we had our celebration dinner. The couple of days before the election, we went through and made sure we took out anything that was going to get taken out, right? Because we wanted to make it as easy as possible for the county to be able to identify this is legit, right? Because as we looked at it, and that's one of the lessons learned is when people are signing signatures before they walk away, make sure they signed it, right? Make sure they dated it, make sure they put the right address and you can read it. Otherwise, it's not valid. Right. So what we ended up doing those last 24 hours before we turned it in, we just got rid of we took a red pen and crossed out the ones we just knew were going to fail to make it easier for the county. And so we knew even once we took those out that we still had enough.
Did the realtors countermeasure also qualify, and was it on the ballot?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
So you had all the way through the process until last week. You were confronting both measures were on the ballot.
That is correct.
We had this, just to expand the conversation. I've worked hard on 2 ballot measures to abolish the death penalty in California. We had the whole state to deal with, and the expense of those signature gatherers. Some of the paid signature gatherers can be so predatory. They raise their price weekly, and they will put on top of their clipboard whatever measure is paying more that day. They will charge more to the organization, and it cost in the statewide election millions of dollars. But you got onto the ballot. You had both measures. Did the realtor measure fail?
Yes, it did.
It did.
So that's a lot.
That's a tremendous. And so, finally, what was the vote count on C? How much of a majority did you get?
Well, we get another drop today, but right now we're at 54%, 54 point something. Yes, and we needed 50 plus.
That's remarkable.
Yeah, the realtors. The realtors. Last I looked, it was like 11 point something percent for Measure B.
Final, and then Pamela has her hand. I know you're taking a rest.
Yeah.
I think your case study of winning Prop C is so important. Do you have the bandwidth? I mean, this is recorded actually, because I think you should try to gather up your thoughts on both confronting affordable housing through the community and through elections. And much of what you said today is a guidebook on winning. Yes. Our oppositional movements are used to losing, and we are crushed, and we need a win every so often.
That's right.
Because we have close relations to the LA Progressive newspaper here in LA. You may have progressive outlets. I think if you, wrote 1,500 words on your success and gathering up the lessons learned before it's all, dimmed and is lost to history, working together, I'm convinced that LA Progressive would publish such an article. You may have outlets locally. I want to gather up your success and use it to encourage and give hope to others around this state and frankly around the country. So offline, I'm also very taken with you because Elaine is my sister's name. My only sibling is named Elaine, so I always love seeing that name. But if some of this sparks with you offline, let's talk more about that.
Steve, I would absolutely love that. Because the other thing I was reminded of too is strategically, like when we did our canvassing, we strategically went to the high voters, the people who come out to vote. You don't want to just go to any doors, right?
That's right.
The people that vote first, come right out. And then we went priority ones, priority twos, priority threes. And we hit them all. But that's important as well, especially when you're working with a small window.
Pamela, I see your hand up again.
Yeah, two things. In our community, Steve Rohde has been very involved in community conversations, town halls. I'm a very strong believer in that. And I'd love to look at your analysis of you had all the people on the ground doing certain things and then outreach to find your allies in the community. And I really believe in bringing people together, whether it's at churches or town halls, to really understand the issues in depth and to hear all the points of view and concern. The other thing that we're very, very interested in Sonoma County is how to engage youth. Now, in my generation, we were involved, and it's harder and harder. We hear a lot of issues about students are working more than one job and on, that students it's hard for some students to have a lot of extra time to be an activist. But I'm very intrigued by strategies to engage students in these issues that really affect their lives, such as housing. And I'd love to hear more from you about your thoughts on engaging the younger youth, either high school or youth going all the way up to 40. I'd love to hear more about your thoughts on that too. Thank you.
Sure. So I had an intern who started in February, and so he got to witness and be a part of the signature gathering. And we also hired UCSC students to help with the signature gathering, right? So they were in it full force. When my intern's name is Laz, when Laz graduated in June, prior to him leaving, I said, would you like to stay on and work on the campaign? And he said yes, because I knew how absolutely critical it was to get the students involved, A, B, to vote on this measure, right? They're a big part of this community, right? They contribute to the economic growth of this community. And so he said yes. We had an absolutely phenomenal ground plan just at UCSC. They were 100% on the dime. Laz and he went back to LA. I miss him already. And we met the other day when we were saying our goodbyes, and he thanked me, one, for being his mentor, but he thanked me for trusting him with this project. And I said, you showed me your leadership, because this is all about leadership, right? We needed a leader who was available to rally the students, right? And show them and engage with them of how important this is for their community, because this is their community. And so we had dozens and dozens of committed students, not just every once in a while, that was committed these last 2 months. And they knocked it out of the park. I was very pleased. Yeah, the UCSC Dems came out in full force. There was a couple other organizations under the leadership of Laz, who was my intern, intern at HSCC, and a couple of the other students. They just stayed on the dime. We checked in. We made sure they stayed focused. When we had to pivot, we pivot, but we still was doing the same thing. One, we got them to register to vote, which was tremendous, was a tremendous success. And two, yes on C and yes on Prop 50. I mean, I have the video on my phone, but election night, it's probably about 6 o'clock, and Laz sends me a video, and the line went on for miles of the students still waiting to get in the vote.
Wow.
It brought tears to my eyes.
Congratulations. I have
Yeah.
a quick follow-up.
Yeah.
What you touched upon, I believe very strongly, is the idea of mentorship and
Yeah.
offering students the opportunity to get involved in something and learn a
Mm-hmm.
lot about organizing, activism,
Mm-hmm.
how to engage the community, how to think politically. And I really believe that that's a really powerful model, because I think
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of people in the younger generation that have turned off. They've lost faith. We have the propaganda that says nothing works, nothing works. So there's a lot of students that say, why bother? It's
Mm-hmm.
hopeless. And I think we do need to offer youth the opportunities when they're either high school or college age or young professionals to get involved and have mentorship, have
Mm-hmm.
people say, we believe in you and we want to give you an
Mm-hmm.
opportunity to learn something new
Mm-hmm.
and to contribute. Thank you so much.
Yes.
It's very cool, very wonderful.
You're very welcome.
Michael.
Yeah, thanks. I was going to talk about something else, but since this just came up, I would encourage you, if you're still in touch with that intern who came
Mm-hmm.
down here to LA, to maybe put them in touch with ICJP, in
Oh,
particular
yeah,
with
sure.
Anthony, who's doing housing work, in Pasadena. I think it would be great to, have some of that energy here. We've talked in the past about trying
Mm-hmm.
to, I don't know what to say, rejuvenate, let's say, ICUJP. Most of us are on the old
Mm-hmm.
I did want to mention that we had a situation here in LA similar to what you were talking about with, although it wasn't competing ballot measures, but the city council passed a city ordinance raising the minimum wage for people working in hospitality and tourism. And then the hotel industry put up a fake ballot measure they were gathering signatures for they claimed was going to equalize or something the minimum wage, but really it was about lowering the wage that had been adopted by the city council.
Mm-hmm.
People had to go about the effort of waging a campaign to get people to rescind their signatures because so many people got duped into signing that. So I think it's a very typical dirty trick, that they do, to
Mm-hmm.
confuse people. And it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't competing ballot measures here, but it was an effort to
Mm-hmm.
overturn a city ordinance
Mm-hmm.
that was, beneficial to working people.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Well, thank you. I mean, I had a couple of questions. There's one, I think, not too long ago, you interviewed Nicole Colburn, I think it was. Is that her
Yes.
name? And
Yep.
she's the executive officer of Santa Cruz. And I asked the question, is it ever going to be possible for my kids to ever buy a home in Santa Cruz County?
Mm-hmm.
And I think both of you had the statement that we need to flood the market with real estate. It seems like we can't seem to bring the cost down. So um, maybe they can rent or buy like into some of the new units right now. But it seems, the work is keep going. Do you see a possibility of it coming down, housing market, or no?
I mean, I do, but I think there's a role that everybody plays in this, right? So someone mentioned earlier about NIMBY, right?
Mhm.
What people need to understand, the more you block, the more expensive it becomes, right? Look how many projects have left Santa Cruz after putting in thousands and thousands of dollars, and then they pulled out,
Yeah.
right? We have to be, I tell you, we have to choose and be conscious of the battles that we pick. I do believe eventually that we'll be able to have housing that will meet other people's needs, and people's pocketbooks. But we all have to work together to be able to do that. One of the focus of HSCC is looking at first-time home buyers, stuff, right? Because we don't want to discourage people, especially our young people, from not having to be able to aspire to buy a home, right? But we all have to work together to be able to make that happen. So again, is it going to be today or tomorrow? No, but it could be next week or next month. We just can't keep giving in to the narrative that things are not going to work, because you know what? They won't work. I just watched us. You saw it on with Measure C.
Yeah.
It when we got that first drop of votes and it was 50.4%, I was happy. Even though that wasn't the end all be all, I was happy because we weren't expecting it to be that high, that right off the gate, right? But it was because we just kept plugging along. You got to get rid of all that noise and just stay focused on why you're doing this work and who you're doing this work for, and then things can shift. But we have to work together though.
Yeah, I mean that was, to me, that was a miracle. I'm a Christian, so it was a miracle. You know, it's like part in the Red Sea. It was like I used to, yeah, in the '80s I used to work with the homeless in Los Angeles, and we had a guy named Ted Hayes I worked with, and he would always say, "Don, we shoot for the universe, we settle for a star." And I thought about that.
That's right.
When that won, and I thought, no, we shot for the universe and got the universe. So why not? You know what I mean? So why not?
That's right.
And the last statement I wanted to make, and I see Michael's hand up, and then I'll shut up, is like, every time I come back from the Middle East, and last time I was able to go into some refugee camps, and it takes me about a month to get settled down, to start calming down, and then the negative thoughts come in, and then emotions will catch up with me because it's hard to see kids in a hard situation. Do you, when you're done with work like this, does it take you a long time to recover, or more than a day?
Oh yeah. I've taken this week to do a lot of when chilling out includes reflection, and includes because there is a high, because you're going, right? But today I use it, like yesterday I was just chilling on the couch watching the birds and just reflecting on this last 12 months and how there was some really hard times in this process.
Yeah.
But for me personally, I went back to my roots. And this is all rooted work. This is about roots, right? Getting people rooted someplace where they can stay, and I just went back to my roots and saying, okay, you can, as they say, take your rest and then get back up the next day. And that's what I would do. I would take my rest and get up the next day and say, okay, where are we at? Okay, we need to step it up on this. Let's do this. Because you have to have the rest in order to be able to continue to do this work, right? But yeah, there is the leadership team. We had an amazing leadership team. We got together the other night and had a nice dinner together.
Cool.
And and I said 2.5 years, and somebody said actually 7, because we worked in 2018 with Measure H, because it was Measure H when that failed, in the county of Santa Cruz. Because it's just hard to run a tax measure in the county of Santa Cruz. It just won't pass. That we just stuck with it. We brought other people along the way. Some people drop off, but they were still committed, right? Because life happens, but they were still in it.
Yeah.
They were just still in it. And, connecting with people is what, as my wife's an introvert. And I'm an extrovert. So she'd be like, okay, do I have to go to this event? Can I stay home? That kind of thing. And I'm like ready to go. I really love people. And that's from my upbringing, always being involved with people in my community. And so that's what kept me going. The stories kept me going. The hope kept me going. Right. Being the voice for those voices. And Don, in our community, it's sometimes this community is not easy.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The Black population is very small, like very, very small. And doing this work, being African American, is not easy. But I do it for my community. I don't care what color you are. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, when I do the NAACP meetings, it's like, I thought there's like 4 Blacks like 20 whites and a half Arab, half white guy, me. It's like, and it's like, well, when I first moved out of LA to Santa Cruz, I was a culture shock.
Yeah.
And I heard the most racist stuff I ever heard in my entire life in Santa Cruz. And I grew up in Los Angeles, and it was like, I just cannot believe the stuff that comes out of people's mouth. I had a guy tell me that the other day, a Latino guy in Watsonville let a guy go ahead of him at the Home Depot, no, Nob Hill shopping. He had a full cart. So my friend had a full cart, and this little Hispanic man had one thing, and the guy said, "Hey, go ahead in front of me."
Mhm.
And so he did. But the guy behind my friend said, "Why are you letting that Mexican cut in front of us?" This is last week.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I understand that racism in Santa Cruz, and I don't understand. I'll never understand it, but I just, I really thank you so much for, what you've been doing. And Measure C is going to help a lot of people down the
Yes.
road. Just, my kids. I think you're also part of building the unit for kids with special needs. Were you part of that? The housing?
No.
Okay.
Mm-mm. No.
Anyway, it just touches a lot of people, and I want to
Yes.
keep going. I saw Michael, you got your hand up again. Did you want to say anything?
Yeah, I wanted to chime in also on thank you, Elaine, for your work and for this presentation. Really, very uplifting. I did want to mention again about some of the work that Anthony and Jill do. You can see the little logo they're making a housing community happen. They've been very successful in getting housing built in Pasadena by the city and by different faith groups in those churches and synagogues and so on, using their land to put up housing for people. And I think that is long-term the solution. That obviously the lack of housing, the price of housing, the homelessness is building more housing. And I just wanted to comment. I don't know if people saw the crap from Trump about 50-year mortgages. Do people see that at all? That's his solution, is to say, and it's just preposterous. The real estate industry and the bankers say it's not going to do anything to lower the actual cost. It's just going to increase the cost. Over the lifetime of the thing, you're going to pay 40% more in interest. So
Wow.
just the absurdity of some of the stuff on offer in this society by people in charge is just shameful.
I see Pamela, you got your hand up again.
Yeah, just a comment, because I worked in public health in Santa Clara County for a long time. We also looked at long-term planning strategies, urban planning, my phone's going off. Unique communities of such as Santa Cruz and Sonoma that have large agricultural areas, how to protect your agriculture, how to protect your environment. And I'd love to hear more from you when we have an opportunity about those long-term strategies of planning. And, San Jose has been on a 20-year re-envisioning urban planning to have all of the transportation lines and housing and workplace clustered. So San Jose is a perfect example of no urban planning from the 60s, 50s, and 60s, and it was a nightmare, and now they're trying to revise that. And I see Santa Cruz has such a tiny amount of land in the north part of where the city is, the town, that is very challenging because you have such traffic issues now, and where does mass transportation come in, et cetera. Thank you.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody about that the other day. Okay, it's I think I don't see anybody else hand up. I'll just turn it back to Steve and see if he had any closing comments.
Thank you for pitching that to me. Elaine, thank you. Thank you for today. Thank you for what you do every day, waking up, doing this hard work. As chair of this organization, I'm empowered to grant you lifetime card-carrying membership in ICUJP.
Thank you.
Your membership is fully paid. please, we're going to separately talk about this notion of you writing something and sharing your lessons learned. But if you're able, with Don's encouragement, to join us on Friday mornings, you obviously can contribute a tremendous amount to us. We are a statewide organization now, and your insights and enthusiasm mean a lot to us. And do you yourself have any closing thoughts?
No, I was honored to be invited here, and I look forward to. I'd like to continue to stay in touch. Again, we do this work together, and so I'd be happy to work with y'all to write something up. If I connect with Anthony, if they're thinking about putting a measure on the ballot, happy to help work with them on that. Yeah, I'm here to be of support and in collaboration.
Wonderful. If you have the time and can stay about 10 more minutes, we have a closing circle.
Sure.
And it's very meaningful for us, and we'd like you to be with us till the end. Rick.
I was going to say, throwing out these ideas of you running for governor or city council, I think if you want a real challenge, and you know this, why don't you can try out for Giants head coach this year.
Oh gosh, right? Right? Oh, because I'm the one who's okay. So I'm yelling at the TV half the time, right? No, don't do that play. And my wife reminds me, Elaine, they can't hear you. Or I'm like, no, that was an interception. No, that's it. I says they should be paying me the millions. So you called me out on that.
So give us, as if we were holding hands and looking to the week ahead, give us your closing thoughts.
Lord God, we thank you. We thank you, thank you. Thank you for Elaine. Thank you for her spirit. Thank you for the way that she has been so compassionate and committed to this community and to the people of the community that she is in, and that she can inspire us all with the stories that she can share to teach us, God, how to be better, how to do our work better. And Lord, we ask that you would just multiply her and her path and the time she has now to rest as she begins the next phase of whatever it is, God, that's ahead. So, and we thank you for all of us that are dealing with different physical issues, for your healing power, and also for your traveling mercies. We thank you for this amazing group and the opportunity at a distance to be part of it. So may we, as we're holding our hearts and minds and hands in not physical ways, but in ways that we can be touching each other now, may we continue to touch many others this week. Amen.
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 Amen. Thank
Amen.
you. Thank you, Jill. Thank you,
Health and
Anthony.
wholeness to you.
Yeah.
Be
Thank you,
well and be
everybody.
safe. Wonderful. Really, you're a new friend to us, and that's important. Thanks, everyone. Do something good and safe tomorrow. Good for yourself, good for your community. And we welcome you back next Friday. Thanks, everybody.